Alrighty everyone, welcome back. Now, given that The Mandalorian Season 3 is a thing of the past, and a lot of Star Wars fans are putting it behind themselves, we are now looking forward to the Ahsoka Tano series, which, by the way, is 100% written by Dave Filoni with zero Kathleen Kennedy input, so it's going to be interesting to see exactly how this show rolls out, how it's actually going to be executed once it arrives on Disney+, and what the fan reception is going to be like in comparison to all Mando seasons, as well as Book of Boba Fett. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that, of course, there's been a lot of things happening over the past couple of months related to Disney Star Wars. There's been a lot of course corrections taking place where they want to focus now on movies more so again in the coming years. In the meantime, the shows are going to be basically a build-up toward a lot of those Star Wars films that have been greenlit by Disney CEO Bob Iger. Now, there's a lot of things going on, too, with Pedro Pascal, the actor who portrays Din Djarin, and how a lot of that is going to be something big to do with Mando Season 3, alright? He had a couple of things to say that I think sheds more light on the whole, drama happening with Mando Season 3 right now, not just from the fans, but also from what happened behind closed doors. Now, you all know that Din Djarin is one of, the familiar faces of the Mandalorian series. A lot of fans felt like it focused too much on Bo-Katan. That was another part of the complaints out there. But I digress, alright? So moving on to the next piece here that I think is very interesting is exactly what Pedro Pascal had to say about what happened to The Mandalorian Season 3, and how a lot of this has to do with Kathleen Kennedy's terrible decisions, if I must add, to the third installment. So, with both Disney and Lucasfilm preparing to make several changes to the Star Wars franchise, recently actor Pedro Pascal revealed a certain truth in a recent interview involving Mando Season 3. Pedro went on to state the following to the entire community. So we were going to have this really big finale, probably bigger than the one that we delivered in the final version, where we had both Boba Fett and Ahsoka come into the fight against Moff Gideon and his forces. This was after the revision was done after Gina's exit. Ahsoka was going to come to Din Djarin's aid to face off Moff Gideon. I vividly remember the script had a moment where Ahsoka was going to clash with the Darksaber in a scene or two, and Boba Fett's Slave 1 was going to come swooping into the depths of Mandalore and shooting down those Mando troopers with the help of Fennec. It was seriously one of the most and best endings ever out of the entire series, but Kathy decided it wasn't the best path to take, and she wanted to write out Boba Fett, and obviously I can't understand why Temuera was also upset about him no longer getting the call and his role getting cut back. Now, let me just stop right here for one moment, because it's very interesting of what Pedro is pointing out here, is that both Rosario and Temuera Morrison were supposed to have these engaging roles as, Ahsoka and Boba Fett really going down to the depths of Mandalore, and we know that obviously everything related to Boba Fett, he really got treated wrong. Temuera Morrison has been calling out Disney for a couple of days now about why he was so snubbed and why he had a lot of plans for Mando Season 3, and he was just put to the wayside because of cutbacks. What's really surprising to me, by the way, on a side note, is how Pedro calls it the Slave 1. Meanwhile, in canon, it's actually now called the Fire Spray-31 Class Patrol. Just to point that out there. But anyways, moving on. The thing about this that I think is very intriguing is that they were supposed to make two big cameos at the very end of Mando Season 3. Now, do I think that Ahsoka and Boba would have really improved the overall structure of the fight on Mandalore? It really depends. I think it would have been an awesome, extension of the finale, but I'm happy with what we got in the last half. It had a slow build-up, I will admit. There are elements in the finale that I'm just kind of like rolling my eyes, but there's a lot of parts in this finale that were just really just well crafted and well established. I will admit, it's the best episode out of the entire 8 episodes. I would definitely go as far to say that the series didn't really pick up until episode 7. The last 2 are my favorite in my opinion. I mean, I've talked about this time and time again, that there are only bits and pieces of Mando Season 3 that at least stand out to me that are really well crafted. Alright, there's a lot of moments in here that weren't really well written. I feel like the overuse of monsters was another complaint among fans that they kept on pointing out. But the next thing that Pedro points out here is interesting because he goes on to elaborate. There were many cutbacks and it wasn't John and Dave's fault, so I don't like to blame them. I don't like to point fingers. Kathy felt it was the right thing to do. I may not have agreed with her vision, but I respected it at the time. This sounds like what Mark Hamill said, by the way, when he got the Last Jedi treatment. Temuera getting phased out really hurt him. That's all I know. That he didn't really take it too well, and I didn't really feel that he deserved that. I love Boba Fett, and he is a great character, and I really needed some kind of role in this season that I wanted to actually participate in this with him. His and Rosario's cameos were short but sweet in the script and just flat out amazing and action-packed that I think would have been a great value to the season. It was going to be a blast. Temuera right now isn't dealing with this well, and I wish him all the best on the future of the franchise. I just wish both Rosario and Temuera got the roles that they had deserved. So, again, I mean, it really just makes you realize what Kathleen Kennedy did when she interfered with the Mandalorian Season 3 finale. Look, I understand cameos aren't everything. It's not always the answer to make anything better. You know, if you just throw them in there, let's be honest, it's just a band-aid. You're just kind of putting a band-aid on the situation. But the way that they were going to establish this sounds visually amazing. To have Ahsoka clash with the Darksaber, to have Boba Fett coming in with his Slave One, and yes, that's what I call his starship, coming in with his Slave One, taking out what Pedro called the Mando troopers, but taking them out one by one, just amazing. And I think that's what we needed. We needed Boba Fett to come to Din Djarin's aid. We needed Ahsoka to come to Bo-Katan's aid to take on Moff Gideon. It just seemed right, and it seems like that was something that was supposed to happen there when they were even filming this thing, but it felt like an empty space. Like something was supposed to happen in the middle point of that fight, but it didn't. So yeah, I mean, a lot of it had to do with these original ideas and stories that Kathleen Kennedy eventually just diminished and dismantled and got rid of, and it's just unfortunate that that's what happened. As you all know, Temuera has been really pointing things out about what Disney did to him, and he's not too proud of it at all. He's really not fond of Disney right now. This really makes you wonder, is he coming back? You know, as Boba Fett and anything else? We haven't really heard much. We haven't heard all that much about his involvement in Ahsoka either, so it's either A response to the low fan reception of the Book of Boba Fett that made Kathleen Kennedy have a change of heart, or B, it was just flat out a very bad choice on her end, randomly. That just made no sense. So overall, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.